What if Palpatine didn't want Anakin as an apprentice? What would have happened then? Let's find out. So in this timeline, the ancient prophecies meant nothing to Sheev Palpatine. In his chambers within the Republic Executive Building, he often contemplated how the Jedi's mystic traditions had blinded them to the true nature of power. Their belief in a chosen one stemmed from the interpretations of Master Fay Kovan, who had studied a weathered holocron a millennium ago and extrapolated a convenient narrative about the destruction of the Sith. The Order's desperation to validate their own relevance had led them to pin their hopes on a child from the Outer Rim. Palpatine's lips curled as he recalled Master Qui-Gon's fervent assertions about young Skywalker's unprecedented midi-chlorian count. The boy's mysterious conception might have intrigued a lesser strategist, but Palpatine knew better than to let superstition interfere with carefully laid plans. The galaxy operated on more tangible currencies: fear, ambition, and the raw mathematics of military might. Still, young Skywalker proved useful in unexpected ways. As his reputation grew during the Clone Wars, his proximity to the Jedi Council created opportunities that Palpatine's intelligence networks couldn't match. The Supreme Chancellor cultivated their relationship with carefully measured shows of grandfatherly concern, each conversation calibrated to extract crucial insights into the Order's movements and deliberations. Unlike his master Plagueis, who had obsessed over prophecies and cosmic balance, Palpatine saw Skywalker as nothing more than another piece on his Dejaric board, one to be sacrificed along with all the other Jedi when the moment arrived. The Clone Wars proceeded exactly as Palpatine had engineered. Every Republic victory, every separatist advance, each diplomatic crisis and military triumph, all of them steps in an elaborate dance. Count Dooku played his part with aristocratic precision, never suspecting that his master had already calculated the exact time and place of his death. The same applied to General Grievous, whose cybernetic enhancements and tactical protocols made him the perfect boogeyman to occupy the Republic's attention. When Dooku and Grievous moved to their assigned positions on Utapau, Palpatine recognized the moment he had spent decades orchestrating. The planet's sinkholes and underground caverns would become their tomb, along with the last vestiges of organized resistance to his new order. He arranged for this information to reach the Jedi Council through carefully placed sources, knowing they would dispatch their most capable team to handle the threat. The selection of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker for the mission required no manipulation on his part. The Supreme Chancellor watched from his office as their Venator-class Star Destroyer ascended through Coruscant's atmosphere, its angular hull catching the last rays of sunset. Palpatine's fingers traced the comm panel built into his desk, where a single encoded command waited to be transmitted. Order 66 would transform the Grand Army of the Republic into the executioners of the Jedi Order. There would be no need for elaborate schemes to turn Skywalker to the dark side, no theatrical kidnappings or public spectacles. The boy who some called the Chosen One would die alongside his fellow Jedi. The door to the Separatist command center on Utapau blasted inward, breaching charges reducing Durasteel to slag. Through the expanding cloud stepped Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, their lightsabers casting blue reflections across the mist. Behind them, clone troopers of the 501st and 212th poured through multiple breach points, their targeting systems automatically compensating for the artificial fog. General Grievous's metallic talons scraped against the command center's floor as he rose from his tactical display. The Separatist leaders huddled behind their military commander. "Master Kenobi," Grievous wheezed, his vocabulary struggling to maintain volume, "I expected someone with your reputation to be a bit more subtle." The general's tactical processors assessed escape vectors, calculating trajectories through Utapau's maze of sinkholes. His organic eyes, the last remnants of his Kalish form, detected the formation of Republic gunships hovering at strategic points throughout the cavern system. Still, his combat experience suggested a small chance of successful extraction. Grievous burst through the command center's view screen, shards of transparent material scattering into the void. The escape lasted precisely 6 seconds. 6 LAAT gunships emerged from their holding positions, their composite beam turrets tracking as one. The first salvo severed Grievous's right arm cluster. The second burst shredded his duranium alloy plating, exposing the vital organs he so zealously protected. By the 5th synchronized burst, targeting computers could no longer detect enough intact material to classify as a target. What remained of the Supreme Commander of the droid armies drifted down through Utapau's levels like metallic snow. In his private command suite several levels above, Count Dooku observed the execution through encrypted feeds. The operation's efficiency aligned with his master's predictions. The Republic's military machine had evolved beyond the need for Jedi generals. Soon, Lord Sidious would transform that machine into something greater. Dooku's role now was to play the captured leader, maintaining the fiction of opposition until the appropriate moment. A proximity alert indicated Republic forces approaching his position. When clone troopers breached the entrance, they found him waiting with palms raised in a gesture of aristocratic surrender. "I believe," he announced to the advancing Jedi, "you'll find my lightsaber makes for an adequate token of surrender." The weapon floated gracefully from his belt, presenting itself to Obi-Wan. Each movement reinforced the narrative: the captured leader, the end of resistance, the validation of Republic authority. Dooku's certainty in Sidious's design never wavered. The Venator-class Star Destroyer hung in Utapau's stratosphere. In the vessel's maximum security detention block, Count Dooku sat in his cell with the same composed demeanor he'd displayed during his farcical capture by VK pirates. Clone technicians calibrated neural inhibitors that hummed at frequencies specifically tuned for Force-sensitive prisoners, a technological advancement that would have saved Hondo Ohnaka considerable trouble. The Separatist Council members, secured in adjacent cells, lacked the Count's dignified acceptance of their circumstances. Clone security teams maintained triple-shift rotations, though such precautions seemed unnecessary. Dooku appeared content to wait, like a Dejarik player who had calculated 30 moves ahead. Meanwhile, in Utapau's vast network of sinkholes, Anakin and Obi-Wan directed mop-up operations against the remnants of the droid army. B-1 battle droids maintained their programmed defensive protocols, their independent processors executing preloaded tactical subroutines. Yet without coordinated strategy or reinforcement, the droids fell into predictable patterns. Clone squads exploited these behavioral loops, their DC-15s reducing mechanical bodies to component particles. The caverns amplified each servo whine and metallic impact, creating a percussion of systematic elimination as platoons of the 501st and 212th advanced through the levels. On Coruscant, Chancellor Palpatine reviewed the encrypted transmissions, confirming the Separatist leadership's capture. With Dooku contained and Grievous eliminated, the Senate would expect him to relinquish his emergency powers. The Force rippled with approaching signatures, Mace Windu leading a contingent of Council Masters, their intentions broadcasting through the Force with characteristic Jedi certainty. The Jedi entered his office, maintaining diplomatic composure. Windu positioned himself at the fore of the group, his demeanor suggesting this was a formality rather than a confrontation. "Chancellor, with Count Dooku captured and General Grievous dead, the crisis has passed. It's time to relinquish your emergency powers." Palpatine's fingers stilled on his desk. Decades of planning had led to this precise moment. "Master Windu, I wondered when the Jedi would make their move." His voice shed its political veneer, adopting tones not heard in millennia. "But I'm afraid you've miscalculated." The lightsaber seemed to materialize in his palm, its crimson blade illuminating faces transformed by shock to horror. The duel transformed his office into a maelstrom of plasma and Force energy. 3 masters fell in Palpatine's opening assault. Tien and Kolar cut down before their blades cleared their robes, Fisto following moments later. Windu's Vapad style tore through space, each sequence of strikes probing deeper into Palpatine's defense network. The Sith Lord's blade intercepted a thrust aimed at his throat, but the parry left him temporarily vulnerable. In that microsecond of disadvantage, Palpatine made his calculation. He unleashed a burst of Force energy at the transparisteel viewport, the reinforced material splintering into a crystalline rain. The vacuum effect tugged at robes and scattered data pads as he backflipped through the improvised exit, landing on the maintenance platform where members of the Coruscant Guard maintained their positions. His fingers found the concealed comlink, transmitting the coded signal that would transform the Grand Army of the Republic into executioners. On Utapau, Anakin's Force awareness exploded with warning. He pivoted to find Commander Appo's blaster aligned with his skull, joined by dozens of identical weapons. Lightsabers flashed into defensive configurations as the first volley erupted. Anakin and Obi-Wan's blades generated overlapping barriers of coherent energy, redirecting plasma bolts into walls, floors, and the occasional clone trooper. But the soldiers advanced with machine-like synchronization, each squad moving to eliminate potential escape vectors. The 2 Jedi fought their way through waves of clone troopers, their knowledge of both Republic and Separatist protocols guiding them to a Confederate hangar. They sprinted for a Sheathipede-class shuttle, deflecting blaster fire as they went. Just as the boarding ramp sealed, a shot from an elevated clone position threaded through the narrowing gap. The bolt's trajectory, altered by its contact with the closing door's magnetic field, struck Obi-Wan's leg instead of its intended target point. The shuttle lifted off, slipping through Utapau's orbital defenses before the Star Destroyers could adjust their targeting parameters. Anakin's first priority was contacting Padme. Her encrypted personal channel, designed for sensitive diplomatic communications, provided their only secure connection. Through their brief exchange, she warned him about the Temple's beacon calling all Jedi to return, a trap she'd already learned about through Senate channels. She quickly arranged contact with Bail Organa via the Alderaanian diplomatic network. The senator informed them of Palpatine's power grab and the systematic hunting of Jedi. He shared that Yoda had survived and was with him, transmitting coordinates for a rendezvous. The Tantive 3's medical bay hummed with diagnostic equipment as droids assessed the damage to Obi-Wan's leg. Scanners mapped the blast's impact pattern, while Bacta compounds circulated through delivery systems. "We need to return to Coruscant," Anakin declared in the ship's briefing room, his tension vibrating through the Force. When Yoda's ears tilted in assessment, he added, "The Temple's recall beacon. Any surviving Jedi responding to that signal will be walking into execution." Yoda's claws shifted against his Geimer stick, his perception probing past Anakin's stated reasoning. "Correct you are. But remember you must. While active the clone protocols remain, no one around us is safe." The Ancient Master's emphasis carried layers of meaning that made Anakin's thoughts flicker to Padme. The ship's holonet receiver intercepted a priority broadcast. Palpatine had summoned an emergency Senate session to address the Jedi Rebellion. "The clone forces will be concentrated on governmental sectors," Bail observed. "I can arrange transport for Master Kenobi to our medical facility on Polis Massa. The surgical capabilities there exceed what we have aboard. The emergency session will draw forces away from the Temple District. You'll never have a better chance to slip in undetected." Obi-Wan's voice carried through the calm, tinged with both pain and determination. "I should rest and heal, you must," Yoda interrupted. "Different paths we now take." They coordinated their timing meticulously. As Bail's transport prepared to carry Obi-Wan to the Outer Rim facility, Anakin and Yoda plotted their approach to the temple. Smoke still curled from the temple's upper levels as they approached through maintenance channels. The empty halls bore testament to both massacre and escape. Anakin's fingers manipulated the communication center systems, overriding the recall beacon's automated distress protocols. The security recordings revealed the siege's progression, clone squads eventually overwhelming the ancient fortifications through sustained assault. Anakin switched off the display, his connection to the Force resonating with Yoda's. The time for strategy and subterfuge had ended. Only direct confrontation remained. They slipped into the Senate building's subsurface maintenance levels through access points the cleaning droids used, where ancient durasteel conduits carried power to the vast chambers above. Yoda and Anakin navigated through service tunnels, their Force signatures compressed to near imperceptibility. The private turbo lift opened into the curved corridor beneath the Senate rotunda. In the circular chamber, 2 crimson-robed guards stood their watch. A gesture from Yoda sent the guards slamming into the wall behind them. Their Force pikes clattered against polished floors as they slumped unconscious. Across the chamber, Palpatine sat at his desk, fresh from his declaration of the new empire to the Senate. His eyes lifted, golden irises flickering in the artificial light. Lightning erupted from Palpatine's fingers without warning. Anakin's blade materialized in a perfect defensive arc, containing the energy even as it threatened to overload his lightsaber's containment field. The office's blast doors sealed at his command, magnetic locks engaging with pneumatic finality. The duel transformed the Chancellor's office into an electromagnetic storm. Yoda and Anakin moved in complementary patterns, centuries of experience harmonizing with raw power. Palpatine's blade wove crimson patterns through the air as he matched their coordination with preternatural speed. His face no longer maintained any pretense of benevolent leadership. The dark side had consumed the politician's mask completely. Anakin spared a fraction of his focus to guide Mas Amedda into unconsciousness before the Chagrian could interfere. Palpatine's attacks probed for openings, testing defenses with centuries of accumulated Sith knowledge. But something in his tactical calculations began to shift as Anakin countered each sequence with impossible precision. The truth forced its way into Palpatine's mind even as he deflected strikes from both opponents. He had underestimated something here, but the realization vanished as his mind automatically rejected any notion of error. His blade slashed through the air, attempting to drive them back. Yoda absorbed another blast of Force lightning, the energy scattering his diminutive form across Palpatine's desk. Anakin pressed the advantage, his blade work eliminating Palpatine's preferred angles of attack. The Sith Lord's connection to the dark side surged with desperate intensity as strategic options dwindled. In the end, it was mathematics rather than mysticism that sealed Palpatine's fate. Anakin's blade found the precise vector that bisected the Sith Lord's defenses. Both hands, still crackling with dark side energy, separated from their wrists in a single motion. The follow-through thrust penetrated Palpatine's chest, angling upward through tissue and bone until it emerged through his skull. The galaxy's architect of chaos collapsed, his schemes evaporating with his final breath. Anakin deactivated his blade and moved to help Yoda, who had already begun to recover. In the moment before they departed, Yoda paused over Masameda's unconscious form. The ancient master's claws moved in subtle gestures, carefully altering the Shagrian's memory of events. At the security console, Anakin executed a series of precise data purges, corrupting the office's surveillance recordings. They navigated back through maintenance levels. By the time security forces discovered the Chancellor's body, the Jedi were already departing the system, leaving Coruscant's politicians to grapple with the power vacuum they'd created. The coordinates for Polis Massa waited in their Navicomputer. As Coruscant receded behind them, the first reports of Palpatine's death began propagating through the holonet. Palpatine's empire collapsed before it could fully coalesce. His meticulously crafted support structure, maintained through decades of force manipulation and political maneuvering, began unraveling the moment his death was confirmed. The Supreme Chancellor's office, its data system still cycling through automated protocols, transmitted his death notice across every governmental channel. Masameda, his memory of the confrontation altered by Yoda's precise mental adjustments, could not say what exactly had occurred in the Chancellor's senatorial office. The power vacuum generated political turbulence at every level of governance. Military governors attempted to establish independent territories. Sector administrators reinterpreted their authority. The clone army's command structure fragmented as different generals interpreted their mandates through opposing ideological filters. Yet from this chaos emerged an unexpected coalition. The delegation of 2,000, though still viewed with suspicion by Palpatine's loyalists, found themselves in a unique position to influence the transition. As the power base fractured, senators who had once feared taking any stance now sought new alliances. Padme Amidala's voice, among others, began to carry weight in chambers where military governors and sector administrators fought for control. The election of an interim chancellor stabilized immediate governmental functions. For months, the Senate chambers echoed with fierce debate over the Jedi Order's fate. Exposing Palpatine's true nature remained nearly impossible. The Star Destroyer carrying Dooku and the separatist leadership had been forced to eliminate them during what official reports called an escape attempt, conveniently erasing potential testimony. Without living witnesses to verify Palpatine's orchestration of both sides, many continued to believe the Jedi had assassinated a legitimate chancellor. Finally, the newly elected leader made a calculated political decision. With evidence showing only 4 masters had moved against Palpatine, continuing the purge risked creating more martyrs than solutions. Even after this pronouncement, it took nearly a year of contentious legislative sessions to formally rescind Order 66 and reinstate the Jedi Order under a Senate Oversight Committee, a compromise that reflected both the lingering suspicions and pragmatic needs of a galaxy in transition. On Polis Massa, Yoda contemplated the Order's future with sobering clarity. Few Jedi had survived the initial purge, and fewer still might choose to return after such swift betrayal. The Council's failure to protect their own revealed how far they had strayed from their purpose. Yet Yoda felt the weight of responsibility. Someone had to preserve what wisdom remained, to attempt rebuilding something better from these bitter lessons. Anakin's thoughts centered on Coruscant, where Padme waited. A year of separation had been necessary while the Senate debated their fate, but now he could finally return to his wife. His connection to the Force felt different after everything, not the promised cosmic balance, but something more grounded in reality. The dark side still existed in the natural cycle of things, but without Palpatine's poisonous manipulation. Their future remained uncertain. The new Oversight Committee, the scattered survivors, the lingering suspicions, all these would need to be navigated. But as Anakin prepared for his return to Coruscant, he felt something he hadn't in a long time: hope. Master Yoda and Ki-Adi Mundi tied Masameda to a chair and lit a fire under it.